Alfred, and welcome.
Yes, good morning. Glad to be here.
Right. I mean, every now and then we check in with TADCO and see what's happening down there. What are some of the new developments? Give us an overall view of what has been happening.
All right. So, what's happening now in TADCO? So currently we have a community care project in which we are definitely reaching out to the farmers. It's going to run for a period of 6 months in which we take all of the produce and we distribute them to various persons in need in the society. The impact from this really is to gather the data, which will now be used to identify exactly what goes on in Tobago as relates to the production level as relates to agriculture. This data will now be used, and we would definitely have some conversations with the various stakeholders and people like the supermarkets, the restaurants, those type of persons, so that we provide that data to these people so that now they will have a consistent supply based on what persons are actually producing here in Tobago.
Right. And, when you hear from a lot of companies and businesses as to why they often prioritize imported goods, you hear them saying that a lot of times locally, the quality and the supply is inconsistent with the demand. How would the data help to translate to increasing our ability to produce a consistent number of produce at a consistent quality level?
Right. So what we have right now is terms of verification. Now, verification is very key. Even if someone comes and says that they have X amount of produce, what we do is a verification team that will go out and verify exactly what the person is doing, if they are following good agricultural practice and these type of things. Over the span our term at TADCO, what has happened is that we would have had the poultry program. This program here now with the community care is a hybrid version where we are taking the goods directly from the person as relates to the chicken. So before we would have provided the inputs and stuff like that. So now we would have provided in the training as relates to how to grow the chicken, the different slaughtering practices. And now we are geared at taking that finished product from that person. So it's kind of a hybrid person where we have persons on their own now after the training and stuff like that. As relates to the harvest, and we did some training as well as to various harvesting practices. At the end of the day, when these businesses want certain product, they must be able to ensure that it comes from that persons are following good agricultural practice. And so this is therefore linked to that whole process in terms of the training leading up to this final project here.
Right. And what about the Mega Farm Project Initiative? Where are you guys as it pertains to that?
Well, TADCO is partnering with the Mega Farm Committee, in which they are now identifying different areas in which persons can get involved as relates to the Mega Farm. The Mega Farm is therefore important so that you can have persons streamline on various products that Tobago actually use on a regular basis, if not daily basis, and therefore have a more consistent product going forward. All of this really is geared towards closing that gap, From where I work for the last around 23 years, I can tell you exactly what comes to Tobago on a regular basis. And the intention really, is to build what we have here on the island and promote that local product right now.
Excellent. Yes. And even as it pertains to that capacity building among the farmers and that level of training, are you getting the type of support and feedback and engagement from farmers that is needed? And if not, what do you think is needed to get persons actually involved when these initiatives are put out there?
Right. So it's a twofold part where farmers understand. So we understand that the farmers can plant. However, there's a marketing side of it in which they have to sell their produce, which is a totally different aspect of it. So if TADCO can assist in that part in terms of providing the marketing, and that's what the data is really important for. So if X is producing this type of produce, we can therefore have that document to show that this is producing. And now for banks and these type of institutions, you have to show a paper trail and you have to show a trend. So therefore, that will now be provided to these institutions where persons can now get loans and better be able to build their capacity and brand, if that is. So it's a twofold part where, speaking from a farmer perspective, I am able to identify how much it costs to produce one tomato, you know. And we want to get farmers to that perspective, you know, as relates to how much money you put into fertilizer, how much money you put into land preparation, even your time being there, you know, things like, you know, being able to understand the ground and the chemistry as relates to a good crop. That is the aim as well. So we are going to provide some further training as relates to financial stability, where persons need to be able to understand the simple part of it, you know, how to write up receipts and keeping that record, because it is very crucial that the farmers and the processors, even the fishermen, because we're going to be doing some work with fishermen as well, understand the importance of keeping at your financial records. The bank have their matrix in which they would give persons certain loans and stuff like that, in which we have to assist in getting persons to reach that type of capacity, you know.
Right, and even as it pertains to those national grants that are given out from the Ministry of Agriculture, now that there's a new administration at the central government level, would TADCO and your division be working closer with the ministry to ensure that Tobagonians are able to benefit from a lot of those national financial assistance programs for farmers?
Of course, the intention really is to collaborate and to get the needed assistance where it's needed, you know. We are planning a visit actually to Trinidad soon, in terms of meeting with the agricultural ministry and stuff like that. But I know they're at the point now where they just came in, so we're just giving them some time frame to get everything arranged, you know. It's a new government, so I believe that they're putting some stuff in place, but we are going to be meeting with them to discuss various initiatives, you know, that I believe that would therefore put Tobago on the map again. You know?
Excellent. And you know, for you, what would be some of the key goals for TADCO right now as you are trying to grow and develop the organization?
So, you know, TADCO, at the end of the day, is a company, you know. Although we are registered under the Companies Act of Trinidad and Tobago, the major stakeholder is, and only stakeholder is the public, which is in the form of the assembly, the THA. So the aim of that really is to ensure that the company is viable. What we are doing so far in terms of, you know, the fishing vessel, the cold storage, the dry storage, and the different aspects of what TADCO is involved in terms of these value-added products, is to provide a safe and clean product for persons, you know. We are going to be doing some initiatives very soon as relates to our students who are across in Trinidad, as relates to, you know, getting certain agricultural produce during their time there in Trinidad. Huh? So we are working on some products, because part of it now is that now we are able to pay people in a more timely manner. The farmers who in our program, they have a 7-day gap in which we pay them, so that they are able to have that money in a very quick time. And all of the revenue that we have coming is going to go back into the public. And as I said, I spoke about the issue with the you know, children being in Trinidad. For persons who study and them in Trinidad, you know, getting food items and stuff might be a little challenging. You know, persons from Tobago may not want to venture into the market to get the best deals and to go further into certain supermarkets and stuff like that. So we are therefore going to get some items that we are actually producing in TADCO, things like the chicken, the mash, in which we control the prices, you know, and therefore able to reach these students in a more financial, you know, as relates to their limitations, you know, in terms
Right.
of what they can
And
do.
even as it pertains to fisheries, a new vessel was acquired by the Department of Fisheries. Is that so?
I would say it was a new, when it says a new vessel, a vessel that was repurposed.
Okay.
They had the Japanese organization by the name of JICA that would have donated some vessels. One of them have now been repurposed to do some patrols. There are 3 of them aluminum hull vessels, extremely good actually. Aluminum hull vessels is a very rare commodity. You know, given the fact that we are in a seawater, that they are in seawater all the time, is very good. So it's just to repurpose them and get them outfitted back in and put them back into the circulation of that department.
All right. And so we've heard that the popular recycling organization that is housed at the TADCO compound in Shore Park is no longer there. Tell us a bit about that.
Right. So it is very, very important for us to identify the difference between an occupant and a tenant, you know. as it's just totally two different terms. An occupant is someone who is there, and a tenant is someone who we have a legal binding arrangement.
Right.
So TADCO, for the record, TADCO has no arrangement with this recycling company. Given the fact that we came and met them there, and you know, due to the fact that we are a company, you know, just for the public record, you know, it would have incurred a debt of $3.3 million outstanding. But that was not the reason why they are not there, you know, because...
Is it that you said that there was no agreement between the company and TADCO?
Yes.
So are you saying, so where did the debt come from then?
Well, there's something called rent, in which what had happened is that there was an agreement in the previous administration in which there was an agreement between the division responsible for environment and TADCO, right, in which they had put some initiatives there as relates to recycling that has since come and expire. But to say that there's an agreement between TADCO and the organization, it doesn't exist.
So where does the debt come from then? Because if there was no rental agreement between yourself and the company,
normally the division will pay the rent.
Right. So the debt was from the Department of the Environment.
Correct.
So, and nobody, you know, made any moves to, you know, to retain the finances from that debt from the department.
I would allow those people to speak on it. I really want to.
When you say those people, who do you mean?
Well, whoever is responsible at the time at the division level, as it relates to who holds that responsibility.
You mean the secretary for the division?
As I said, I really can't say how that agreement was made up. All I can say is that there was a documented contract which had a start date and an end date. It was a trial or a pilot project, if you want to call it.
Right.
I'm not sure what was the initiatives back then as to what has happened.
Right. But recently I had a conversation with the Department of the Environment, and they indicated that recycling is a huge part of the agenda moving forward as it pertains to the environment. So I'm very shocked to hear that that company that was a part of that local recycling initiative has been moved out of the TADCO compound. And then you're saying that the reason for that is because there was no arrangement between the current TADCO and that company. So explain that for me.
So what I'm saying, I don't want us to mix up what we are saying.
Yeah.
That was not the reason why the company is no longer there.
It's not because of the...
No. We're not looking at the monetary aspect of it. I just outlined what was some of the issues, but that was not the reason. So we had received a shutdown notice from the Division of Health as relates to what was going on there. There's a lot of rodents and stuff as relates to garbage collecting that was not been doing anything, in which we were given a time frame to which the company was shut down, and then we had to clear. And again, TADCO took on that responsibility of clearing the space, in which we have removed about several trucks of garbage that I was just storing there. I mean, I can show you some videos and stuff. It was in a case where it was affecting health and it was affecting the public. Also, the tenants were complaining about the smell, the rodents and these type of things. So we have to abide by what health have to say, right? Just to be clear, that was a shutdown notice from health as relates to the, from their ordinance as relates to health. Right? So just to be clear on that part, right? We as TADCO and as a responsible company had to take on the responsibility of clearing out that space because we have other paying tenants that have a responsibility to their staff and the people coming there. The room was filled to the grim out. I mean, we had to pay a backhoe. We have removed probably over 20 of these 10-loader trucks, and we still are removing garbage. Each trip that we pay with the backhoe, you know, is about close to $1,200 to $1,500 or something like that. You know? So you understand the cost that we now have to incur of something that, you know, so it's, I would understand that there's a public interest, because if there are rodents and people make a video of rodents running around the compound, it will be a whole different story. You know, TADCO would now face the blunt of it as if we are responsible. But as a responsible organization, we have to take that very serious, you know.
Right. So is it that the company was not being managed properly, or the recycling itself was not being managed in environmentally safe way, as it
Um,
pertains to health and
I,
safety concerns?
I don't want to get involved in that part of it. As I said, from TADCO perspective, we have to look at it from an overall perspective and take on the role of clearing the space and getting the issue sorted. I don't want to speak on the company and if they were managed properly and that type of thing.
Right, and even as it pertains to moving forward with recycling, because we hear the Department of the Environment stating that this is one of the things that they want to get into, raising awareness and getting Tobagonians more interested in recycling. Is it that, companies like these, or even this very company, would be relocated to another place where they can function in partnership with the department?
So what I can say is that at TADCO, we are there for, of course, and we would assist in terms of providing an alternative means of recycling, of course, you know. However, as relates to the company, I really can't speak anything on that as to if they are going to be relocated and what's going on. I could only follow what the law was in terms of clearing the space and removing the issue at hand, which was the health issue at hand, you know, which would have posed a very serious threat to the public, and then we would have been having another conversation here as relates to what's going on in TADCO. So we had to deal with that part from an overall perspective in terms of clearing the space. I mean, it was in a very, very terrible, terrible, terrible situation, right? I mean, as you open that door, it was just garbage. I mean, you're talking about 5,000 square foot of garbage. That is not an easy task to clean, you know. However, we had to now take on that financial burden to remove that those items there.
Okay. But we're going to take a quick break right here, and we'll be back with much more right after this. So see you soon. Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. I have been chatting with Mr. Ricardo Alfred from TADCO, and we have been getting that update on all that's happening. So even, how long have you been functioning as the chairman for TADCO?
I would say fortunately, unfortunately, since 2022, March of 2022.
Right. And for you, what has been some of the biggest challenges and some of the biggest wins since you've been in this chair?
For me personally, being the type of person that I am, for me, it's all about results, you know. I know some of the managers, I find my targets in which I give them are very unique, you know, but I'm quite pleased today, to be honest, of the staff and all the management of TADCO, because I would say TADCO probably is the only company in Trinidad and Tobago that have so many young people at the helm. And it is very important for me that we create this type of environment for young people to get a chance to lead and to put their ideas and training back into some sort of meaningful employment. We would have engaged NESC in terms of getting students there. We have a lot of persons from the on the job training program, and that is my aim really, is to get a lot of these youths involved and get them to understand the workplace and also to understand business, you know. One of our biggest highlights is bringing that vessel back into operation. And for me personally, I like to ensure that persons know exactly what's going on with the vessel, so that, because it's their vessel, whereas my training might be involved in that type of environment, I'm really trying to get the fisher folks and them as well to understand the importance of bridging that gap between a mothership and a pirogue. You know, it's a very, very big step, and we're therefore going to be working with the fisher folks in terms of training and stuff like that. I am in conversation bi-weekly with some of a group of fisher folks as relates to training and having discussions with them in terms of making their product better, you know. So I'm happy where the company is financially as well, as to what we met it. Suppliers are paid in a more timely manner. And it is therefore, it is running as a company. I'm quite pleased about that, where we are. Subvention come, subvention don't come, the staff are still going to get paid based on the measures in which we would have put to increase some of the assets that we have down there, and to put back some of the assets that was not working and functioning back into the space. So you have things like the cold storage that was not maintained for a very, very long time. When I came, there was a mountain of refrigerant bottles. Now we are finding the leaks, replacing some of the motors and building some of the compressors so that we have a better service. We do have some challenges as relates to the current coming into TADCO. However, we are working with the authorities to rectify that, whereas we can have a more constant flow of current, because it affects the equipment in a very, very serious way, And then, due to procurement and stuff like that, in which I'm quite pleased on what the procurement is doing. We just have to keep working. But I'm quite pleased where the company is right now financially. And as relates to the staff, I'm very proud as to where the staff has come. The staff is responsible for painting the compound. The staff is responsible for, meeting the public. And I can say, because sometimes I just go there and just sit and, when people come in, hi, good morning. Your first entry into organization is that first greet, and I'm quite pleased where they are. The staff, kudos to them.
Right, and even as it pertains to, when you guys came in, you met that Goldsboro processing plant project. We are in 2025 now. This administration came in the end of 2021. And I remember that, there were no documentation during the handing over and all that. But it has been some time since then. Where are you with that?
Well, project? It's quite fitting that you mentioned that. Huh? So I wrote a letter back in 2022 to the Assistant Commissioner of Police who was based there in Tobago, in which that was forwarded to the Anti-Corruption Bureau or something like that in Trinidad. It's only in 2025 I've actually received a conversation. I've actually had an interview with them. And in which, sadly, headways could be faster. However, they didn't engage me in 2025 in terms of making some headway there. What persons have to understand is that you cannot enter into a space, especially when you have a lot of outstanding issues there. If you were to accept and enter into that space as relates to what's going on, we would have to accept all liabilities, accept every single wrong that was done to that organization. It is important that we get the scope of work. It is important that we get all the contracts, the people who are involved, what they were supposed to do, and these type of things. You're not dealing with Ricardo Alfred money. You're dealing with the state money. Persons have to be held accountable as relates to these type of things. So there's
still no paper trail as it pertains to who was the contractor that did the building? What was the procurement process? And
we would know exactly who the persons are as to the scope of work and as to what they were contracted to do. That's what we need to really hold those persons accountable or liable or that type of.
But even as it pertains to continuing that development, is that something that is still on the table? So, is it, a part of the agenda of this current administration to continue working on that building to finish it? Because if it still has not been utilized after so many years, we know that the property becomes deteriorated over time. So what is happening there?
So the space is good. It's a more central space. What we need to do right now is to make a decision as relates to repurposing that space in terms of whether it be a collection point, whether it be a processing point. So we are going to be working with the various agricultural persons. We are in conversation with persons as well as relates to repurposing that space. Because now you would now have to get the type of equipments going in there. And from these equipments, you have something called the load factor and the power factor, in which you have to take the TADCO to determine the size of transformers, how much power you need. And this is why the documentation is very, very critical, in terms of these type of equipment. So it's going to be repurposed, and we're definitely you're going to be seeing some things coming out of there very soon. We therefore just have to dot all the I's and stuff like that, because there's no running water, there's no sewage connection, there's nothing, and yet that whole project cost taxpayers at least $8 million. But nevertheless, we are therefore going to do what we have to do in terms of getting that space up and running. So it's just that we have to put a lot of priority in place as relates to other priority items in terms of making that TADCO brand.
All right. And even as we round up this morning's discussion, is there anything that you want to leave us with or that you were not able to highlight this morning?
Well, what I would say is that we are going to be working with the fisher folks. We now have the Maritime Authority coming up once a month to Tobago in terms of getting the fisher folks and various persons in that type of environment, get all of their certifications sorted and get all of their launch captain renewals and all these type of things. So it's very crucial that they come to Tobago. One other aspect as well is that there's going to be a pilot project in which, separate to TADCO, I am also the maritime surveyor here in Tobago as relates to ships and their seaworthiness. Fishermen are going to be, we're going to be calling on them because we're going to be doing some training with them as relates to certification. They are going to get something called a small boat operator's license. It's free, so I want all of the fisher folks and other persons to get it. It's a type of certification. It's not difficult at all. You just come in, we will go through all of the different things and you're going to get that certification. What this does as well is that you put fishermen now and move them away from careers that persons believe that if you can't do schoolwork, you could go and fish or farm or stuff like that. We're going to make them into business persons involved in a fishing trade or involved in a farming trade. It is very important that certification is key as relates to this type of environment. So they're going to be trained. We're going to be doing some work with them. I am in conversation with the various associations and they are all on board with it. Again, this is a free certification. Tobago will lead in terms of getting all of the persons certified because that is my aim really, to put Tobago on the map. So
Are you also inviting folks to come from Trinidad to be a part of that training as well?
It's open to anyone. I mean, the certification is recognized in Trinidad and Tobago.
Excellent.
Right?
And finally, as that recycling company was removed from the TADCO compound, is there a notification saying that it's no longer there? And if so, is that facility going to be back out on the market to be rented soon if businesses are interested in, how much square foot did you say?
So it's about 5,000 square foot. We are currently doing a lot of cleaning of that space where we have to sanitize it and that type of environment. However, we do have some new rates and we do encourage persons to come in. We do have a lot of interested persons who want to rent the space and we are going to be having that type of conversation. Again, as relates to the food hub and stuff, we have now been granted our bar license. So all of that will be available for the public to really...
So persons would be able to sell alcohol at the food hub?
Yes, we will just operate as a landlord. We're not going to be involved in that type of trade as well. So yeah. But there are going to be some new items coming there on the food hub. Things like an ATM, the player machine, to get persons into that space, get them away from the street selling stuff on the street and get them into a more safer environment.
So are you engaging some of those street vendors that you see in Scarborough there, even along that Milford Road area?
In the Tobago space, persons are oriented based on what they see. So I guess when we have everything set up and they see what is going on, we can engage them. But persons are not really keen on lip service. So we're going to put all of these things in place and then get them involved. But we already have certain licenses in place and, get them up and running.
Right. But it is the plan to come and engage all those persons on the Milford Road that are selling coconuts and, clothes and all these things to get them into the food hub. The
intention is to involve all Tobagonians, all businesses, as relates, and have a central point where they can do their trade in a more safe manner. There's a huge car park space. It's a central location. But we're going to put all of the items there. We did write to First Citizens Bank to get an ATM there. So, there's some stuff coming to therefore assist persons in a very meaningful way,
Excellent.
Yes.
Well, we want to thank you so much for coming in and giving us this update, Ricardo, and thank you to your TADCO team. Guys, we're going to take a quick break right here and we'll be back right after this. See you soon.